Hello, welcome back. In this video, I'm just going to take you through the shell. It's all pretty much done now. All the welding's been completed. There's no more grinding or drilling or fabrication to do. I've filled all the holes that I've needed to fill. All the brackets that have been made and welded on, and all the little bits have been fabricated, and I've rubbed it all down and finished it and polished it, sanded it, and give it its final coat of primer. In fact, the only thing left to do now before it goes to the paint shop is to seam seal it, which shouldn't take too long. I want to be really careful about that. There was plenty of rust traps that Ford designed in, unfortunately, back in the 60s and 70s. I want to try and eliminate as many of those as possible, because I want to have this car for a long time. I want it to be around for a long time. I don't want any bubbles appearing and all the rest of it. So I thought what I'd do, as I've got the car completely stripped down now to a bare shell and everything's nice and clean, I'll take you through all the work that I've done to the shell and the modifications and the little tweaks here and there, and show you what I've done. There we go. So we'll start off at the front of the car, under the bonnet. I'm going to use a little pointy stick because I haven't got that long arms. Obviously the thing that's immediately apparent is the heater bubble. The bubble stuck out too far over the engine bay, and I need to get some clearance back. When I use can be running a Sierra Cosworth engine with long studs, so the head can't slide off the block. It has to be dropped down over the studs, and the bubble stuck out too far and stopped me from doing that. So I set the bubble back, which created a few other problems. The heater fan being the main thing. I want to keep the heater, so I had to refabricate the heater shroud on the inside, and then I welded a flat panel in, put a few divots in for strength and for pattern, you know, just for decoration really, I suppose, and then the hole in the middle to let all the water that comes out and down through the grill, the windscreen grill over there. On the driver's side of the bay, you'll see there's a fabricated panel to take the master cylinders for the Gartrack bias brake pedal box. There are reinforcements in each of the corners, Group 4 style. They're welded into the shell. It's got a Group 4 style double skin bulkhead panel. It's all in one piece with no seams. Not a big fan of the seams. It's got the AVO additions of the Type 49 shell, so it's got the reinforced strut tops, and they're bronze brazed on, just like the works cars were done. Similarly, the Group 4 strut brace is bronze brazed, and you can't see it now because I painted over it, but the gap between the wing and the scuttle is bronze brazed. Load spreading washers for the strut top bolts, the Group 4 reinforcements to the chassis in both corners. That little pocket there gives a lot more space on the plenum chamber the injector plenum chamber for the Cosy engine, and these holes here for wiring looms and servos, and for the electric cable to come through the shell. Along the chassis rails, I've welded little fastener tabs which will carry the wiring harness on simple cable ties. I'm not a fan of drilling through the panels to put P-clips or whatever. I want as few holes in the panels as possible. So I welded on tabs. The radiator support panels have had to be cut right back, and the cross member, the lower cross member, has been modified so I can get a big RS500 sized intercooler in there, and then the triple core radiator behind that, but I can still keep the original bonnet catch. I prefer not to run bonnet pins. That's pretty much under the bonnet. I also fabricated an exhaust tunnel, runs the full length of the car. It's a 4-inch diameter mold steel section tube, split in half, flanged round to take a 3-inch diameter exhaust pipe. I'll put some little cut-ins to run the pipe as close to the body as possible. The pipe run's going to come out. I took that section of floor out and replaced it with this to give me some extra clearance. Originally it would have come down this far, so I can get an extra silencer here, so the exhaust will run down, kick up into a silencer, just a short one, over the axle using these two divots here that are fabricated, and then the silencer will run here transversely across the back of the car and then exit that way. Okay, with the car rotated on the spit, we can have a proper look underneath the car. So you remember me talking about those rust traps? A big one is the front wings always go on Mark 1s, and it's typically up in this area, and the front panel, the original front panel, sticks out quite a lot and traps everything in there. And I've trimmed it right back so I can get some seam sealer on this joint here, and also seam sealer where the front panel, the headlamp panel, meets the wing right in the corners, and I can get to it all and it's much cleaner. You'll see that it's got the brace on the strut cup from the Type 49 cars, and also at the bottom of the strut support panels here and here, which have been seam welded to the shell. You can see where the front of the safety devices cage comes through the bulkhead and locates on a big thick 3mm plate onto the strut cups, the top mounting points of the struts. Behind the front panel, I had a chap, a good pal of mine, he pressed up some new panels, and these take the Lucas type side lights used on the works cars, same as Hillman Imp ones, with a side light and an indicator. Because they ran CB diodes, they had no side light, and to be legal for competition they needed a side light and an indicator, so they used the Imp item from Lucas. I've got some more weld-on tabs to support the clips. There are some 15-inch tubs been let in, which allow the 15-inch wheels to not rub on the inside of the car. The bubble arches, they're Magnum front wings and Magnum rear quarters with the integral arches, have been trimmed and then rolled. You'll probably see better on the lower arch from here. So there's a 1/4-inch steel rod that's been shaped and tacked to the inside, and then the metal has been formed all the way around. I did it with a panel hammer and a heat gun, and it took me days. I'm no panel worker, but I managed to do it, and it adds a lot of strength to the panel and a lot of clearance. I'm running 9x15s all round. As we work back, you can see that there are the Group 4 skids on the chassis rails. It's a auto trans tunnel that's been stitch welded in, and then to fit the big T5 gearbox I had to cut the top off and make up this wedge and lift to the top of the gearbox tunnel upwards by about 4 inches, and also had to make new gearbox mounts. Fabricated them out of some 2mm steel sheet with integral weld nuts. The transmission tunnel then leads into a raised prop shaft tunnel, which has also been raised about 4 inches. You can see that the skids have been added Type 49 style to the rear leaf spring hangers, although they won't be used. This car's running coilover dampers, no leaf springs. To enable that, it needs to be 6-linked, so the 4-link part is these boxes here for the lower and the upper, which have been skidded as well. There's probably a better view there. And then to stop the axle going side to side, which the old leaf springs would have done, there's a Watts linkage towers, short one on that side and a long one on this side to allow clearance for the exhaust. The rear suspension turrets are up in the wheel arches. Again, the rear arches have been rolled. I don't know if I can get the camera up there. You can see there's a 1/4-inch rod in there, and then the wheel arch has been fully rolled and then stitched over. There's a rear valance skid. Again, I had to put a divot in that for the rear exhaust. That pretty much covers the underside of the car. I'll just walk through the rear wheel arch area. So obviously the big bubble wings have needed new inner arches and wheel tubs to take the 15-inch by 9-inch wheels and tyres. You can see the turret there, which will accept a vertical strut with coilover springs instead of the old angled ones.